Ladies, let me say something's hard to hear, but necessary. When a woman loves a man, she gives her soul, her time, her everything. But sometimes, even with all that love, that same man can turn around and hurt her. And you're left wondering why. Why would he hurt someone who loved him so deeply? A lot of times, people don't understand that a man who hurts a woman who loves him isn't always doing it because he wants to. It might not even be about her at all. See, you got to understand something about men. A man can't give what he doesn't have. If a man doesn't love himself, he can't possibly love you right. And I'm not talking about that surface level love. I mean the kind that protects, cherishes, and builds. The kind that makes a woman feel secure, honored, appreciated. A man who's still at war with himself is always going to bring chaos into every relationship he steps into. Sometimes the woman he's hurting is the one who's trying the hardest. She's loyal, she's patient, she's pouring everything she has into him, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And somehow she ends up the one broken, not because she did anything wrong, but because he hasn't done the work. That's what this comes down to, a lack of inner work, a lack of healing. A man can have a good job, a nice car, a smooth talk, but if he's got a broken soul, he'll end up destroying every good thing that comes his way, including a woman who genuinely loves him. You see, when a man doesn't love himself, he lives in defense mode. He sees threats where there are none. He takes kindness as weakness. He thinks love is a game or a hustle, something you manipulate to stay on top. He doesn't know how to sit with love and be still with it. He doesn't know how to say, I don't know how to be loved right now, so instead he lashes out. He'll sabotage something beautiful because deep down he doesn't feel worthy of it. And when you don't feel worthy, you treat the people who see value in you like they're crazy. That's why a man will disrespect a woman who respects him. That's why he'll cheat on a woman who's loyal, lie to a woman who's honest, ignore a woman who's present. It's because her love exposes his emptiness. Her consistency highlights his instability. He might not even understand why he's doing it. Some men never look in the mirror. They never ask the tough questions. They just move from one relationship to the next, leaving a trail of women asking themselves, was I not enough? But baby, it was never about you. You were more than enough. You just loved someone who wasn't ready. And instead of stepping up, instead of getting help, instead of healing, he hurt you because that was easier than facing himself. Now, I know that's hard to swallow. I know how painful it is to give your all to someone and be left with nothing. To be questioned, doubted, and discarded when all you did was love. But that's what happens when you're with someone who doesn't love himself. He turns your love into a burden, not a blessing. He starts to resent you for trying to help him, for believing in him, for seeing the good in him that he refuses to see in himself. That resentment builds, and before you know it, he's pushing you away, making you feel like you're the problem when all you've ever been is the answer he wasn't ready to accept. There are men walking around right now who are damaged from things they've never spoken about. Fathers who weren't there, mothers who didn't nurture them, trauma from childhood, pain from the streets, pressure from society. But instead of dealing with that pain, they bury it. They cover it with money, sex, pride, or silence. And when love comes knocking, real love, they don't know how to answer. They don't trust it. They don't believe it's real, and so they hurt it, they break it because it feels too unfamiliar, too risky, too exposing. Let me tell you something, real love requires vulnerability. It requires a man to be open, to be honest, to be seen. But a man who doesn't love himself will never allow himself to be seen fully, because he's afraid that if someone really sees him, they'll leave. That fear makes him pull away first. He'll hurt you before you can hurt him. He'll sabotage the relationship before you can realize he's not enough. Not because he's a monster, but because he's scared. And fear, disguised as pride, is dangerous. It'll have him walking around like he's in control when he's really just running from himself. So yes, men hurt women who love them, but not always because they want to. Sometimes it's because they don't know any other way. They don't have the tools. They don't have the self-awareness. They haven't done the inner work. And until a man does that, until he sits with himself, faces his pain, forgives his past, and learns how to truly love who he is, he will continue to hurt people who come close, even the ones who only want to love him. Most people don't want to admit. A lot of men hurt the women who love them because they confuse love with control. That's real. Somewhere along the way, they stop seeing love as something you give freely and started seeing it as something you own, something you manage, something you manipulate to stay in charge. That ain't love. That's insecurity hiding behind ego. You know the type of man I'm talking about. The one who starts off real sweet. He's chasing you, telling you you're his queen, promising he's going to treat you better than anybody ever has. And at first you feel like you finally got somebody who understands your worth. But then the switch flips. Somewhere in the middle of that relationship, he starts feeling like loving you means he's got to control you. He wants to know where you're going, who you're texting, what you're wearing. And when you speak up for yourself, suddenly you're disrespectful. When you make a decision without him, suddenly you're too independent. He starts twisting the narrative so you feel like you're doing something wrong just for being yourself. Why? Because he doesn't feel secure enough in himself to let you be free and still trust that you'll choose him. See, a man who mistakes love for control is usually a man who feels powerless inside. That control is not strength, it's fear. It's a fear of losing you, fear of not being enough, fear that if you really saw his weaknesses, you'd leave. So he tries to keep you close, not with love, but with pressure, with guilt, with dominance. He thinks if he can control the environment, control your choices, control how you move, then he won't lose you. But all that does is suffocate love. Because real love doesn't live in fear. Real love requires trust. It thrives on freedom. When a man truly loves a woman, he doesn't feel the need to own her. He doesn't try to dim her light to make himself shine brighter. He doesn't get intimidated by her independence. He celebrates it. But when a man equates love with control, he starts keeping score. He starts playing games. He starts confusing loyalty with obedience. And that's a dangerous space to be in. You ever seen a man get mad just because his woman is happy without him? That's a control issue. He wants her world to revolve around him so bad that if she smiles too long when he's not around, he starts getting suspicious. He starts accusing her, checking her phone, raising his voice, calling her too friendly or too much. But let me tell you something. A man who really understands love knows that a happy woman is a blessing, not a threat. But see, when a man's self-esteem is low and his pride is high, that's a bad mix. He starts using control as a crutch. He thinks if he can manage you, then he can manage his own insecurities. That's why he gets jealous when other people compliment you. That's why he criticizes your goals, your ambitions, your friends. Because the more you shine, the more he feels like he's fading. And instead of leveling up, instead of rising with you, he tries to pull you down to where he feels comfortable. It's a twisted kind of love because it looks like care, but it's not. He might say, I'm just protecting you. He might say, I just want the best for you. But the truth is, he's trying to control what he's afraid to lose. And fear-based love always leads to pain. You've got women right now walking on eggshells in their own relationships, afraid to speak their truth, afraid to wear what they want, afraid to laugh too loud or post a picture or hang with their own friends because they know it's going to lead to an argument. That ain't love, that's control. And control wears many disguises. It can look like passion. It can sound like concern. But if it's rooted in fear, manipulation, and power plays, then it's poison. The saddest part? A lot of men don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're protecting their relationship. They think they're being strong. But real strength isn't in how much control you have, it's in how much trust you give. Can you trust your woman enough to let her be her? Can you love her without needing to dominate her? Can you sit in your own discomfort long enough to recognize that her freedom doesn't mean your failure? Because if you can't, you'll end up pushing away the very woman who is trying to stand by you. You'll create a prison around a person who only ever wanted to build a home with you. And eventually, she's going to outgrow that prison. She's going to realize that love shouldn't feel like restriction. It should feel like peace. So when a man confuses love with control, he ends up doing more damage than he knows. He ends up turning something beautiful into something toxic. And the tragedy is, he usually doesn't see it until it's too late, until she's gone, until the silence hits, until he's alone with his thoughts and realizes that in his effort to keep her close, he actually drove her away. That's the hard truth. A man who doesn't understand the difference between control and love is always going to hurt the woman who loves him. Not because he doesn't care, but because he never learned how to lead with trust instead of fear. You know what don't get talked about enough? The fact that a lot of men hurt women who love them simply because they never learned how to love right. That's it. That's the core of it. See, we assume everybody knows how to love just because they want love. But wanting love and knowing how to give love are two very different things. Let me break this down. A lot of men out here are walking around with no real blueprint for love, no father figure showing them how a man is supposed to treat a woman, no examples of healthy relationships growing up. Maybe their parents were fighting all the time, or maybe dad wasn't even around. Maybe mama did her best, but she was hurting too. So what happens? That little boy grows up watching dysfunction and confusion, and that becomes his normal. He doesn't know what real love looks like. He's never seen it modeled. All he's seen is pain, silence, ego, pride, cheating, yelling, walking out, coming back, but never healing, never apologizing, never growing. So he grows up, he becomes a man in age, but not in emotional maturity. And he gets into a relationship with a woman who genuinely loves him. A woman who sees past his surface and tries to love the parts of him that he tries to hide. A woman who shows up, stays loyal, forgives, encourages. And at first he enjoys it. He's drawn to her warmth, her consistency, but then something shifts. Because that love, real love, starts to challenge him. It starts to expose where he's lacking. And when you've never been taught how to love properly, love can start to feel uncomfortable, like pressure, like a mirror showing you everything you haven't worked on yet. See, a man who's never been taught how to love thinks it's just about saying, I love you, or buying gifts, or showing up every now and then. But love is deeper than that. Love is accountability. Love is patience. Love is communication. Love is learning how to be present, even when it's uncomfortable. But if a man's never seen that, never practiced that, how's he supposed to give that? He can't, not without doing the work. What ends up happening is this. She's loving him from a healed place, and he's loving her from a broken one. And that gap causes pain because she starts feeling like she's giving everything and getting confusion in return. One minute he's in, next minute he's distant. One day he's affectionate, next day he's cold. And she's sitting there asking herself what changed, but baby, nothing changed except the depth of the love. And his lack of emotional tools can't handle that depth. A man who hasn't learned how to love properly might take her love and weaponize it. He'll use it against her. He'll say things like, "You're too emotional," when she's just expressing her needs, or "You expect too much," when all she wants is consistency. He'll shut down during arguments. He'll avoid responsibility. And then he'll flip it, make her feel like she's asking for too much, just because she's asking for the basics: honesty, effort, time. But he's not doing that because he doesn't care. He's doing it because love feels like a test he was never prepared to pass. When you never learned how to love, even the right kind of love can feel wrong because it's unfamiliar. A man like that doesn't know how to sit still and love. He's always bracing for the moment it falls apart. He's always waiting for the betrayal, for the disappointment, for the thing that confirms what he already believes deep down: I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I don't deserve this. So what does he do? He pushes her away before she can leave. He cheats. He lies. He gets cold. He finds reasons to argue, not because he doesn't love her, but because he doesn't know how to love her. Because nobody ever taught him that love requires vulnerability. That love is service, not control. That love isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. And let me say this: some men want to love right. They feel the pain they're causing. They see the disappointment in her eyes. They know deep down she's a good woman. But wanting to love right and being able to love right are two different things. Without the right tools, without the healing, without the willingness to face himself, he's going to keep failing her. He's going to keep repeating the same patterns, not because she isn't worth it, but because he hasn't become the man who can match her kind of love. Now here's the tough part. Some women stick around hoping he'll change, hoping love will be enough. But love alone can't raise a grown man. Love can't teach him the lessons he refuses to learn. Love can't rewrite his childhood. At some point, he's got to want to grow. He's got to seek guidance, therapy, mentorship, something. Because if he doesn't, he's going to keep hurting every woman who comes into his life. Not maliciously, but unintentionally. And hurt is hurt whether you meant it or not. That's the truth. A man who was never taught how to love right is always going to struggle to love right. Unless he decides to learn, unless he decides to break the cycle, unless he chooses to face himself and say, I don't want to hurt anybody else because of what I didn't heal in myself. That takes maturity, that takes work, that takes humility. But until he gets there, he's going to hurt even the ones who were sent to heal him. One of the most painful truths in relationships is this right here. Sometimes a man hurts a woman who loves him simply because he believes she'll always be there. That's it. That's the reason. He thinks her love is guaranteed. He sees her loyalty, her patience, her forgiveness, and instead of appreciating it, he takes it for granted. He mistakes her consistency for permanence. And let me tell you something. It's a dangerous thing when a man gets too comfortable with a woman's heart. When he starts assuming that no matter what he says, no matter what he does, no matter how many times he falls short, she's still going to be right there. Still loving him, still holding him down, still choosing him. At first, it might look like a compliment. Like, wow, she really loves me no matter what. But over time, it turns into complacency. He stops trying. He stops showing up in the ways that matter. He starts thinking she's not going anywhere. So he stops doing the things he did to win her in the first place. The calls slow down, the compliments stop, the effort fades, and she's left wondering, where did that man go? Now here's what's really happening. That man has convinced himself that her love is unconditional. And while love can be unconditional, relationships are not. Relationships are a daily choice, a constant investment. They require attention, communication, effort. But a man who thinks a woman will always be there often forgets that love has limits. Even the strongest woman has a breaking point. Let's be real. Some men don't change until they lose her, until she finally stops calling, until she stops arguing, until she stops showing up with that same energy, same passion, same hope. And when that happens, when she goes silent, it finally hits him, wait, she was serious? She's really done? But by then it's too late, because the love he took for granted has turned into distance. The loyalty he assumed would never fade has become indifferent. A woman's love isn't something you can just keep drawing from without pouring back into. She's not a machine. She's not a robot. She's human. And the love she gives, that comes with emotional labor. It costs her something every time she chooses to stay when she feels hurt. Every time she forgives, even though she's still healing. Every time she holds back tears just to keep the peace. That kind of love is powerful, but it's not infinite if it's not being reciprocated. What a lot of men don't realize is that every time they ignore her needs, brush off her concerns, or minimize her emotions, they're chipping away at her belief in them. They're making tiny withdrawals from the emotional bank account, and eventually that account runs dry. It doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, it's quiet, but it's real. And when it hits zero, she doesn't scream. She doesn't argue, she just detaches. And that's what hurts the most, because now he's waking up to a woman who no longer reacts, no longer waits for his apology, no longer asks for his time. She's moved on emotionally, even if she's still there physically. And once she checks out like that, it's hard to get her back, because she gave him every chance. She gave him grace, patience, understanding. And he thought it was endless. He thought she'd always be waiting. But let me say this. There's a reason they say you don't know what you have until it's gone. That moment he realizes she's really gone, that's when it all hits him. The empty house, the unanswered texts, the absence of her laughter, her energy, her love. That's when the regret creeps in. He starts replaying every argument, every time he dismissed her feelings, every opportunity he had to love her better and didn't. Now he wants to fix it, now he wants to change, but now she's already healed enough to know she deserves more, and the hardest lesson he'll ever learn is that love doesn't always give second, third, or fourth chances. Sometimes the final chance was the last time she cried and wiped her own tears, the last time she begged him to just see her, to hear her, to fight for her. See, the love a good woman gives is powerful. It's rare, it's life-changing, but it's not something you're entitled to. It's a gift. And when you're given a gift like that, you cherish it, you protect it, you nurture it. You don't play with it like it'll always be there, because the day she leaves, you'll realize she was the peace in your chaos, the calm in your storm, the one who saw your flaws and still chose you, and you broke her heart thinking she'd never walk away. That's what happens when you mistake her love for weakness, when you confuse her patience for passivity. She's not staying because she has to, she's staying because she loves you. But love without effort, that's just pain dressed up in hope. And eventually even hope runs out. So if a man is lucky enough to have a woman who loves him deeply, who's stood by him, who's believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself, he better understand that love doesn't mean forever without responsibility. It means showing up every day, choosing her, valuing her, listening, growing. Because the moment he assumes she'll always be there is the moment he starts losing her.